What were the total loans for HI last quarter? Hey, I'm Mike, Jim, the founder of Definite. This type of question has been insanely broken in agentic analytics, and it's extremely hard to get it right. A lot of businesses use jargon, obviously internally, and what we've built with Definite, in addition to a built-in lakehouse, built-in pipelines, and apps that you can easily build on top of your lakehouse, is a semantic layer and ontology that helps disambiguate ambiguous questions. So in this case, like you can see the agent quickly comes back and says something like, hey, total loans originated in HI, totally valid assumption. In Q2 were 35 loans. And what we've built in Definite is a way to teach the agent the right answer. So how does the agent learn over time? How does the agent track its own knowledge of different concepts, different business jargon? That is the ontology that we've built in Definite. And we'll take a look at how that works here and how the agent can update its own knowledge in a structured and token efficient way. So we experimented with plain markdown files fairly unsuccessfully and have landed on this structured approach, which we can go ahead and kick off a new thread and ask that same question. So this is actually pulled from a real example from one of our customers, which was that they are a fintech. They have a bunch of different loan products, and a very natural thing for them to ask is how much home improvement lending are they doing? And in the case of a plain vanilla LLM, HI often just means the state of Hawaii, which we saw in the previous example. But you can see that now the agent's actually searching its knowledge base and figuring out like, oh, HI actually means home improvement. Let me go ahead and run the analysis that way and get the origination volume for the last quarter for home improvement as opposed to the state of Hawaii. And in addition to best-in-class agentic analytics, Definite also has a built-in lakehouse, built-in pipelines to get data into your lakehouse, and built-in app hosting, which most customers use for dashboards, but are super flexible. You can build forecasting apps. Anything that you could dream up with a React application can be built within Definite and hosted within your platform.
How did June revenue come in versus forecast? Break out operating revenue separately. Another thing ontology can help with is separating ad hoc or unmodeled data. So as an example, your forecast might be in an Excel sheet. That might not be something that you formally model into your semantic layer on an ongoing basis. Having file references, pointers in your ontology can easily solve that without building a full semantic layer. So here the agent's able to find where we have forecast revenue and accurately display like, hey, this is from an Excel upload. It's an estimate. It's not audited.
So this is an example pipeline that's pulling data from our Postgres database into our lakehouse. You can see the automation here itself. You also see there's a transformation scheduled here, which to take a glance at the logic for the transformation, it's taking the raw tables that we're getting from Postgres, building a few staging tables, and then ultimately building this loan portfolio table. Jumping back over to automations, you can also see our maintenance is running within the product itself, and you can control the schedule there. In addition to being able to edit the ontology through the agent itself, you can also have a glossary or take a glance at it at any time. There's both this list view as well as a kind of more complicated graph view, which you can drag around, has some fancy graphics in it. But ultimately, the idea here is just a structured and token efficient way to store context and guide the agent to the right answer, especially around ambiguous concepts that could be interpreted a bunch of different ways. The idea with the ontology is that is an agent first, AI first way to document what the nouns and verbs and things that we really care about as a business are, and give the agent access to those things, and give the agent access to update those over time, and in kind of an version controlled, structured way. The agent is quite capable at building applications and dashboards. As I mentioned before, these are plain React apps, so you can push this to the limits of your imagination. I like to say that the agent kind of just makes it so. Whatever you'd like to see, the agent can make happen. Something as simple as being able to filter these by branch name. If I wanted to change this to some branch grouping, or I wanted to remove this product, basically anything that you can dream up, the agent can make happen. So time range filters, product filters, views by different branches, all very much in the capabilities of the agent. And you can see here, even having some sort of forecast on top of the actual, very easy to do within the agent, and then obviously have some version control and ability to iterate on that application over time.
How many active loans do we have? So one thing we fully expect in Definite is that you iterate on your semantic layer. So as an example here, we're getting active loans back at 25,000. And I just know from past experience as being a risk manager and as part of Meridian that active loans are actually much higher than that. So if dig in and see, does active loans include delinquent loans? Because that feels like what the gap might be, just roughly knowing how many delinquent loans there are and how many active loans there are. And as an admin on this account and as like an editor, higher access privilege, I can edit this semantic layer, right? So I can see here, like, it looks like active loans don't include delinquent loans. And that's actually something we do want to include in active loans. Can you update the semantic layer definition? We actually do want to include delinquent loans in the active loan definition. Please make that change to the semantic layer now. Again, so as someone with elevated permissions in Definite, I can make this change to the semantic layer and quickly get that measure to the rest of my team. So when anyone else asks about this definition, not only will they be able to question and ask the semantic layer, like, does this include delinquent? Does this not include delinquent? And the agent's very good about checking its work after it's done. So you can see now this number lines up much more closely with what I was expecting. And if I start a new thread, how many active loans do we have currently? This change will instantly be reflected. And instead of getting that 25,000 number, we should instantly get the 27.
So going from a more complex example, let's actually have the agent build a dashboard from scratch. So if we say something like building a dashboard that has different branches that ops can track. So I need to know each branch's delinquency for the second quarter, and I need to see the Tampa branch against the rest of the fleet. You can call the dashboard or name the dashboard branch risk monitor. So on a more complicated request like this, the agent will take a few moments to come back, but you can see it's already exploring the data sets, taking a look through the ontology, through the semantic layer, and figuring out the right way to get the data that's necessary for this application, and then it'll get into the business of actually building the application. Quick check-in while the agent's still working through this. You can see that in my initial prompt, I mentioned that Tampa is a problem, quote-unquote problem branch, and immediately recognized that that is an outlier. It's at 10% delinquency versus about 2 to 4% elsewhere. The first impression here is that it nailed the prompt, did kind of no more, no less to solve the problem quickly and get the question answered quickly in a visual way. But one thing I'd personally like to have here is some filters on the left sidebar. So let's jump back to the agent. Can you make it so I can pick the specific set of branches that Tampa's being compared against? So in the left sidebar, add a filter that lets me select the comparison branches, leave Tampa as the always on comparison point, and also give me the ability to select time ranges. So the agent already jumped into making some edits here, quickly verifying that the current version is the same as what its last edit was. You're making sure that no other agents or no other people have edited it since then. So it's reading in that very current real-time file and making the changes that I looked for or that I asked for. You can see in the left sidebar with some comparison branches, and if we select different branches, it is filtering this comparison group to the branch that we're selecting on the left-hand side. So if we unselect all of them, it's the entire rest of the fleet, which is great default behavior. But if we select a few, it's just the ones that we're selecting. And every Definite deployment comes with a Definite MCP. You can add the custom connector, easy as giving it a name, popping in the MCP URL, which is just your app URL with MCP. I've already added it here, and I called it Definite Meridian after the name of the branch or the bank. And I can follow up with the question that we kicked things off with. How much HI volume do we have in the last quarter? You can see the Cloud Cowork is actually appropriately calling the Discover endpoint, which is awesome to see. We do have a skill that you can add to Cowork and other products or other agentic products. But it's cool to see that by default, just the MCP alone is enough to get many more intelligent LLMs to call that automatically. So even without the skill, the MCP stands alone incredibly well. And you can see Claude nailed it, getting just HI, home improvement, origination volume, and getting the same answer that we got in the application.
And to take on a slightly more complicated task in Claude Code, what branches specifically drove the Q2 spike in delinquency? Drafted a note to the branch manager for the responsible branches that drove the delinquency spike, and explain the comparison of the other branches versus the branch that drove the spike. Draft that note here. So very quickly in Claude, we see it's immediately recognizing they can use the Definite MCP to gather the data, and then we'll use other built-in tools to do things like drafted emails. If you have Gmail hooked up to your Claude account, this flow can kind of work end to end in terms of drafting that email, and also making it pretty rich with data and links back to maybe some dashboards or applications that you have in Definite. All right, so Claude's wrapping up here. Giving the option to use some built-in tools. As I think we saw before, the Tampa branch is the one that's causing the spike, and the beauty of being able to use Definite from Claude is that all three other tools can connect directly into it. So, but really easy to connect Definite to the other tools that you're already using as part of your AI stack, whether that be in ChatGPT or Claude Code or Claude Cowork.
So that's the full loop with Definite. Start with your raw sources. Anything with a REST API is fair game. We support over 500 built-in connectors. We'll pull all of that raw data from all your various sources into a lakehouse for you and help you build that semantic layer and ontology so that any agent can understand what that raw data means. Build transformations from that raw data into clean analytic views, and then build the semantic layer and ontology on top to help both agents and your business users understand what's happening inside of your company. And it would be remiss if I didn't mention that there's two ways to host Definite. We can host it for you, but we'd also love to have you host it yourself and have full sovereignty over your data. So you can run Definite in any of the major clouds. So spin it up in AWS in 5 to 10 minutes. It all runs in a single Kubernetes cluster.